Wow, amazing. Hillary Vaughn, on that very issue, I want to go into this with Nile Gardiner, of course, a former aide to Maggie Thatcher. And Nile, I know this is not what we originally planned, but I do want to get on these other subjects. You know, the appeal of these digital currencies is to replace existing ones. And down the road, that's exactly what's going to happen. Is the world ready for that? Do you think that's even remotely possible?
I don't think so, Neil. I mean, I have to say, as a conservative, I'm a believer in tradition, and I don't think you're going to see, for example, the pound sterling ever replaced, for example. And so I think that this is all a bit of sort of flash in the pan, actually, with regard to these digital currencies. So I'm a skeptic. I'm a Eurosceptic as well, but count me as a skeptic on this front also, Neil. All
right. Well, let's switch gears a little bit on North Korea, promising right now something that will gyrate currencies, digital and otherwise, I guess. This plan to do another missile test may be timed close to, if not during, the Winter Olympics in Seoul.
Yeah, we've certainly seen some very interesting developments on the Korean Peninsula front over the past couple of days or so. And we've seen signs of some sort of, detente between North and South Korea. But I have to say that any, faith or optimism that is placed upon negotiations with the North Koreans is, deeply misplaced. And I think the approach taken by the Trump administration so far on the North Korean front has been absolutely the right one, which is that nothing constructive can come from any discussions with the North Koreans until Pyongyang accepts that it has to halt work on its nuclear program. Until we see a clear indication from the North Koreans that they're willing to do so, then I don't see any value in direct negotiations with the North Korean regime. And so this is a sort of feel-good exercise, perhaps, that's being undertaken at the moment between Seoul and Pyongyang. But the reality is nothing fundamental is going to change as a result of these these discussions and this outreach. The reality remains that North Korea is a deeply dangerous, tyrannical regime that is a huge threat to US allies in Asia and, of course, to the United States as well.
I wonder if there's going to be a need for a Maggie Thatcher moment. I'm using the Argentina example with the Falklands. I don't think the Argentinians were planning that she'd go to war over them taking these islands back in the early 80s, but she did. So you want to be unpredictable. I can appreciate that. This is a far greater and more ominous development here for the globe. But what message did Maggie Thatcher send then?
Well, I think over the Falklands issue, Margaret Thatcher sent a message of tremendous strength and resolve. And it was a clear signal of, British leadership, of Western leadership. And she sent a clear message that the free world will not be bullied by, dictators and despots. And that was a message that Margaret Thatcher sent very clearly. And I think with regard to North Korea, of course, no one wants a military conflict here. The stakes are incredibly high, with tens of millions of South Koreans basically being held at gunpoint by North Korea. And so, every effort will be made to avoid some kind of military conflict. But at the same time, you cannot appease dictatorships. And Margaret Thatcher's view was that you simply cannot bow down before dictators across the world, because if you do so, they will grow in strength and eventually they will devour you. And so this was the message that Margaret Thatcher sent over the Falklands and with regard to her wider stance against dictatorships across the world.
Yeah, when she said that, I think the variation was, you have to think the crazy guys are afraid you're just as crazy. Niall, thank you very much. Very good seeing you.
It's my pleasure. Thanks very much, Neil.
All right, Dow Jones is now reporting that Spotify is filing